You're watching this from somewhere on Earth, maybe your room, your car, or under the open sky. But as you listen to these words, I want you to remember something. The sky you're looking at might already be looking back. Before we begin, tell me where you're listening from. Type your city, your country, because tonight, for the first time in human history, we are all under the same mystery. And if you want to see where this story leads, subscribe now. Because what you're about to hear may be the most significant discovery in modern space history. It began quietly. No breaking news, no official alert, just a single line buried deep inside a data release from the Minor Planet Center. Object designated 3I Atlas, confirmed interstellar. At first it sounded ordinary. Another distant body, another traveler through the cold dark between stars. But the researchers who first saw its data, they noticed something no one could explain. The trajectory didn't match any natural pattern. Its velocity, its angle of approach, its apparent origin point, all wrong. And most unsettling of all, it was returning. The first object ever recorded entering our system, leaving and then turning back. That single anomaly changed everything. In the weeks that followed, data poured in from NASA, ESA, and ground-based observatories across Hawaii, Chile, and Spain. Spectral readings, optical imaging, infrared measurements. Each one confirmed what no one wanted to say out loud. 3I Atlas wasn't behaving like a comet. It wasn't rotating like an asteroid, and it wasn't emitting heat like anything natural. It moved like something guided. The early reports were quietly removed from several astronomy databases, archived, redacted, re-uploaded with changes, but not before screenshots started spreading through private astrophysics circles, and from there to Reddit, then to forums, then to whispers. Rumors began to grow that a series of classified observations had detected pulsed light emissions from the object, that the pulses formed a repeating pattern, not random but timed. Some said it was binary, some said it was Morse, others said it was language. NASA denied it. ESA said nothing. But the timestamps told another story, because at the exact moment of those emissions, deep space sensors across 3 continents registered a gravitational tremor. It was as if something massive, unseen, had briefly shifted its weight in the dark. The deeper scientists looked, the stranger it became. The official data labeled it an interstellar comet, but its surface reflected light like machined alloy. Infrared scans showed temperature stability beyond explanation, a perfect thermal equilibrium, impossible for a natural body in open space. And then came the final blow. 3I Atlas was decelerating, not drifting, not slowing through gravity drag, but controlled deceleration, measured, smooth, intelligent, the kind of motion that suggests intent. What followed inside classified channels is still disputed, but leaked meeting minutes from a European Space Agency session reveal a single chilling sentence, spoken by an unnamed official. If the data are real, it means we're not observing an object. We're being approached. Since then, multiple agencies have gone silent. A new data embargo was issued. But tonight, that embargo has been broken. Because last week, a massive data drop appeared on an encrypted astrophysics archive. 18 terabytes of observational records, spectrograms, and image sequences, all marked Atlas 03 Red. The files have now been verified by independent scientists, and they confirm the rumors. The light emissions were real, the energy readings were deliberate, and the object has changed trajectory again. It's now holding a fixed position near Mars' orbit, perfectly stationary relative to the Sun. For 3 days, it hasn't moved a single kilometer. Do you understand what that means? No natural object can do that. So what is 3I Atlas? A vessel? A probe? A fragment of something larger? We don't know. Not yet. But this new data suggests that it might be watching more than just the planets. That it might be watching us. And here's where things turn from science to something almost spiritual. Because hidden inside the new spectrographic data was an encoded pattern, one that matches a harmonic frequency known as the Schumann resonance, the electromagnetic heartbeat of Earth itself. It's as if 3I Atlas isn't just here to observe the solar system. It's listening to our planet's pulse, our rhythm, our presence. The data analysts who uncovered it call this the mirror effect, because whatever this object is, it seems to react to us, to our transmissions, to our signals, to our noise. And that leads to a question few dare to ask. What if this is not a first encounter, but a continuation of something that began long before history? What if this is the next step in a conversation that started long before we knew how to listen? So here we are, watching the Watchers, an interstellar object defying physics, holding still near Mars, humming faintly with the same frequency as Earth itself. Coincidence, error, or the beginning of contact? I'll let you decide. But if you felt that quiet pull toward the stars, that sense that something out there is finally responding, then stay. Because this story is only just beginning. Comment where you're listening from. Subscribe if you want to see how deep this goes. Because tonight, as new data confirms what many feared, the silence of the cosmos has cracked. And in that silence, something is listening back. It started quietly. No press release, no headlines. Just a sudden ripple of encrypted chatter across a few scientific message boards and private astrophysics servers. Somewhere between midnight and dawn, data packets tagged 3i Atlas began appearing in classified observatory archives. Within hours, those who knew what to look for realized something had changed. The discovery didn't come from a telescope, not in the way most would expect. It came from a crossed signal. The kind of interference that shouldn't exist in deep space survey data. A pattern, repeating every 6 hours and 42 minutes, buried beneath cosmic noise. When decoded, the pattern formed coordinates, and those coordinates pointed back to a region of space already known for one thing: the path of 3i Atlas, the interstellar visitor first tracked years ago as it brushed past the edges of our solar system. At first, the scientists assumed it was just a glitch, a coincidence, maybe even an echo from another source. But as more observatories synced their instruments, the truth became impossible to ignore. The signal was real, it was coherent, and most importantly, it was directed. In its last known trajectory, 3i Atlas had vanished beyond the heliopause, the invisible boundary where the sun's influence fades and interstellar space begins. But now, the latest data suggested something impossible. It had changed course, not by a fraction of a degree, but by a full deliberate vector shift, one that aligned with a precise angle relative to Earth's orbit. That single anomaly shattered everything astronomers thought they knew. Natural objects don't turn in deep space, they don't correct their path, and they certainly don't send synchronized signals through multiple wavelengths. Yet here it was, undeniable, measurable, and now verifiable across at least 3 independent observatories. The discovery spread quietly at first, whispered in encrypted channels and late-night video calls between scientists who didn't dare go public yet. If this data is true, one researcher wrote anonymously, then 3i Atlas isn't what we think it is. The files that leaked were massive, terabytes of raw data from spectral readings, radar reflections, and deep space telemetry. At the center of it all, a string of numbers repeating like a heartbeat. 49.3212, 18.750x, 0.0, over and over. No natural source matched the frequency, and when converted into binary and graphed, the pattern looked eerily intentional. Weeks later, NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory quietly uploaded an update to a classified internal server. The headline was understated: 3i Atlas, post-detection analysis, phase shift confirmed. Phase shift. It was a technical way of saying something changed. But inside the document was a section few outside the agency would ever read. It mentioned an energy fluctuation detected by the Deep Space Network, a fluctuation that didn't behave like reflected sunlight or plasma distortion or anything within known physics. The power output, if calculated correctly, exceeded what even our most advanced probes could emit. That's when the real questions began. What exactly is 3i Atlas? A rock? A fragment of something ancient? Or a probe, perhaps, sent long before human history began? In the following weeks, data analysts and astronomers began layering old readings with new signal patterns. That's when another revelation emerged, hidden beneath the noise, An older version of the same pattern existed in data from 2019. It wasn't newly created. It had always been there, waiting for the right conditions to reveal itself. A retired physicist from Prague Observatory put it best in an encrypted message that later leaked to online forums. The signal isn't random. It's a message structured by physics itself. We're only decoding it now because we finally have the tools to hear it. But here's where the discovery takes a turn, because as the public slowly began piecing together the scattered clues, a second event occurred. A sudden blackout in 3 major space telescopes, all within the same 24-hour window. The official explanation? System recalibration. But the timing was too perfect. The same moment the Atlas signal intensified, Earth's instruments went dark. When the data streams came back online, a new object was listed in the registry. Object 3I Atlas 2. No official acknowledgement, no press statement. Just a quiet addition to a classified catalogue. 2 entries now carried the same designation, as if something had multiplied. People began speculating wildly, from binary asteroid systems to ancient automated crafts. But the one thing everyone agreed on was this. Whatever had been found was not drifting aimlessly through space anymore. It was behaving with purpose. Satellite arrays detected minor variations in its speed, tiny bursts of acceleration, too small to be seen but too regular to ignore. It was as if something inside 3I Atlas was adjusting its position. For what reason, no one knew. And then came the files that changed everything. A whistleblower known only as H uploaded 3 compressed archives labeled Atlas, Dropper, B, and C. Each contained gigabytes of deep space telemetry from multiple nations, including agencies that supposedly weren't even tracking the object. Within hours, data enthusiasts began decoding the files, and the patterns they found aligned perfectly with one unsettling theory. 3I Atlas is emitting structured electromagnetic pulses, not random, but timed, consistent with information transmission. This was no longer a rock. It was behaving like a machine. At first, the scientists tried to match it against every known natural phenomenon. Pulsars, quasars, background radiation. But every test failed. The data refused to fit into nature's logic. Then came the alignment. On the night of September 9th, 2025, 3I Atlas crossed a position where Earth, Mars, and Jupiter briefly aligned, forming a perfect geometric angle relative to the Sun. During that 19-hour window, the signal strength tripled. Coincidence? No one could say. But the more the world watched, the clearer it became. Something was waiting for that alignment. Governments went silent. Research teams were instructed to stop data sharing. Observatory live streams suddenly went offline. Even citizen astronomers who tried to point backyard telescopes at the coordinates reported sudden tracking errors, as if their instruments were being subtly interfered with. The rumours began to take over the internet. The first contact protocol is already in motion, claimed one anonymous insider. Another leak suggested the existence of a covert initiative labelled Operation Siren, a multinational task force allegedly formed to evaluate and interpret incoming transmissions. No one could confirm if the project truly existed, but if it did, it meant that somewhere behind locked doors, people weren't just watching 3I Atlas, they were responding to it. The discovery had evolved from an astronomical event to something far greater, a cosmic dialogue. One side transmitting, the other side trying to understand, and somewhere within the noise of the universe, a single question began to echo across the minds of millions. What if we've just been answered, and we didn't even realize the question we asked? But here's where it gets really strange. The data was supposed to make things clearer. Instead, it shattered everything. When the latest batch of readings came in, analysts expected to confirm a trajectory, maybe map out the object's next position. But what they found made no sense at all. The coordinates weren't consistent. Every 72 hours, the position of 3I Atlas shifted slightly, not in the direction it should have been travelling, but in a curve that defied both gravity and momentum. In simple terms, it was moving wrong. One simulation showed it accelerating toward the Sun. Another showed it looping around an invisible axis in space. When cross-referenced, both models were right. because 3i Atlas appeared to exist in two trajectories simultaneously, a phenomenon no natural object could produce. Scientists tried everything to explain it: instrument calibration errors, solar interference, even deliberate data manipulation. But each test came back the same. The readings were authentic, and that meant only one thing: either the universe was lying, or our understanding of motion was. This is when scientists started questioning everything. For years, the object had been catalogued as an interstellar comet, a remnant of a distant solar system, passing harmlessly through our own. But comets don't transmit electromagnetic bursts. They don't alter their velocity in vacuum, and they certainly don't replicate. Yet the latest deep space analysis showed a faint echo, a second, smaller object trailing behind 3i Atlas like a shadow. It was identical in composition, orbit, and speed, as if it had been cloned. The contradiction grew deeper when older data was reanalyzed. Archival images from as far back as 2018 showed the same faint trail, invisible then due to limited sensor precision. It wasn't new. It had always been there. That's when theories began to spiral. Some said it was a binary craft, a paired vessel, one transmitting and the other receiving. Others argued it was a projection, a distortion created by gravitational lensing, like a reflection in space itself. But one small detail overturned both ideas: the timing. Every pulse, every flare, every energy reading from the second object arrived exactly 11 minutes and 38 seconds after the first. Too precise to be natural, too deliberate to ignore. The scientific community split in two. One half argued for reason, an unknown natural phenomenon, perhaps quantum interference on a macro scale. The other half whispered what no one dared publish: we're watching technology far beyond our own. When the European Space Agency's deep field radar tried to lock onto the object, it returned a mirror signal, a reflection that didn't match the transmitted waveform. It was as if something out there sent it back differently, altered, as though acknowledging the attempt. It's like it's aware of being observed, one analyst admitted under anonymity, like it's responding. The contradiction wasn't just in the data, it was in human reaction itself. Governments that once dismissed the 3i Atlas project as cosmic curiosity suddenly tightened information flow. Access to real-time space telemetry became restricted. Civilian observatories began reporting temporary network outages during key observation windows. Even independent radio astronomers, the kind who upload every raw file to public databases, found their feeds corrupted at specific intervals, with strange, repeating headers embedded in the binary. The header code? Morse for wait. For some, this was the breaking point. The idea that something out there was not only active, but somehow intercepting data streams, bordered on impossible. But the evidence kept growing. Satellite anomalies, unexplained thermal flares, and most disturbingly, a low-frequency hum detected on multiple radio bands, a hum that rose and fell in sync with 3i Atlas's new trajectory pattern. As more researchers compared notes, one pattern emerged. The object was aligning, deliberately, with Earth's magnetic field lines. Tiny shifts in position every few days placed it in near-perfect correlation with the planet's magnetic axis. Natural behavior? Impossible. Controlled? Unlikely. But it was happening. "This isn't a comet anymore," a former NASA systems engineer wrote in a leaked internal memo. "It's an observatory, maybe even a listening post, and it's looking right at us." That line ignited chaos. Suddenly, news outlets began to receive tips from anonymous insiders, snippets of internal documents, partial radar images, each one adding fuel to an already burning question. If this thing isn't natural, then what is it? Officially, every agency denied it. Data misinterpretation, software error, optical illusion. But behind closed doors, physicists were rewriting equations that had stood for centuries. The mechanics of inertia, gravity, and energy conservation, all thrown into doubt by a single piece of rock that shouldn't exist. What if, one whispered, it's not a single object at all? What if it's something hidden inside, using the outer shell like camouflage? That idea, once dismissed as science fiction, suddenly gained traction. The spectral analysis from the last data drop showed metallic signatures where only ice and carbon compounds should exist. Specific frequencies of reflected light that matched no known natural mineral. And deep in the data logs, buried in the noise, someone found a pulse, faint, rhythmic, and perfectly harmonic. When the pulse pattern was converted into sound and sped up 100 times, it produced something unexpected. Tone shifts resembling speech patterns. Not words, not language as we know it, but structured rhythm, call and response like an echo conversing with itself. No one knew what to make of it. Was it communication, a system malfunction, or something more profound, a machine attempting to synchronize? Then came the anomaly that silenced even the skeptics. On October 3rd, the signal stopped. Every observatory, NASA, ESA, JAXA, even amateur arrays, all recorded the same thing, total silence, for exactly 12 hours. Then, without warning, the signal resumed, but now at a slightly different frequency, shifted higher by 0.3 megahertz. Why does that matter? Because such a shift requires energy, intentional calibration, the kind of correction you'd make if you were tuning to a new receiver. A new receiver, like Earth. The contradiction now became a crisis. Some insisted it was proof of intelligence. Others said it was a cosmic coincidence amplified by human imagination. But somewhere in the confusion, a third group formed. A quiet coalition of independent scientists, tech analysts, and ex-government researchers calling themselves the Atlas Initiative. Their goal wasn't to prove or disprove, it was to listen, to decode, to find meaning within the chaos. And they did. By cross-referencing signal timestamps from multiple receivers, they noticed something incredible. The pattern of transmission wasn't random at all. It mirrored fluctuations in Earth's own magnetic resonance. It was reacting to us. That discovery changed everything, because it meant the signal was being modified after leaving 3i Atlas. Something, or someone, was adjusting it mid-transmission, as if fine-tuning a conversation across the void. The world wasn't ready for what that implied. The contradiction wasn't just in the data anymore, it was in reality itself. What if the thing we've been tracking isn't traveling through space, but with it? What if it moves between layers of physics we don't yet understand, where direction, distance, and time themselves become fluid? The deeper the Atlas Initiative dug, the more questions emerged. Some data suggested gravitational lensing around the object was fluctuating, a sign of immense energy usage. Others pointed out microbursts of radiation that matched no known stellar source. It all led to one haunting thought. If it's a machine, it's operating on principles far beyond our reach. If it's alive, it might not be alive in any sense we understand. And just when the global conversation reached its breaking point, an encrypted message appeared on an obscure research forum. The post was titled only, "You're looking in the wrong direction." Attached was a single image, a deep space capture of a region opposite 3i Atlas's current path. In the background of that image, faintly visible, was another light, small, steady, and moving toward the same vector. Two lights, two paths, converging. The contradictions were no longer theoretical. Something deliberate was unfolding, and if both objects were part of the same system, then whatever we thought 3i Atlas was, it wasn't alone. By the time the third wave of data was released, the world's scientific community had fractured into camps. On one side were the skeptics, the astrophysicists who clung to classical explanations, desperate to fold the impossible into the familiar. On the other were the few who admitted the truth aloud. Something unprecedented was unfolding, and no known law of physics could contain it. Dr. Annika Sørensen, a theoretical physicist from the University of Oslo, was among the first to speak publicly. Calm, precise, her tone carried both authority and unease. "The Atlas anomaly," she said, "defies the principle of conservation of momentum. The trajectory shift is deliberate, but the energy required to perform such a maneuver would exceed the combined output of every nuclear plant on Earth. Whatever caused it isn't natural." Her words echoed across newsrooms and podcasts, fueling endless speculation. Governments issued denials, calling it overstated. But those who worked in deep space telemetry knew better. Sørensen had seen the raw data, not the cleaned redacted files. Then came Dr. Julian Huang, an astrophysicist at the Lunar Research Complex, who dared to publish a hypothesis that many dismissed as reckless. He proposed that 3I Atlas wasn't a solid object at all, but a vessel encased in a synthetic shell, a form of adaptive matter capable of altering density, shape, and electromagnetic properties based on environmental input. Imagine a probe built from programmable atoms, Huang explained. It doesn't fly through space, it rides the geometry of it. We think in terms of engines and propulsion. But what if the builders of this, whatever it is, understood space-time itself as a medium to manipulate? His paper, briefly available online before being removed without explanation, described theoretical physics centuries ahead of human capability, matter that phases, space that folds, light that transmits code. Most dismissed him. Others began connecting dots, because hidden inside the third leaked dataset was something remarkable. Fluctuations in the object's magnetic field that weren't random at all. They formed wave harmonics identical to those generated during quantum communication experiments, the kind used to test entanglement over distance. If the readings were correct, it meant 3I Atlas wasn't just emitting signals, it might be using quantum entanglement to communicate across time or space, a technology no human agency could yet achieve at interstellar scale. That revelation shook the Atlas initiative. Some members began to suspect that the twin object, the one trailing 11 minutes behind, wasn't a copy, but a receiver. A kind of quantum echo, connected in ways we couldn't perceive. The implications were staggering. To understand it, they called in Dr. Javier Mendez, a veteran engineer from the Deep Space Network. He had spent decades decoding faint signals from Voyager and Pioneer, but this was different. Every time we sent a ping toward Atlas, he explained, it came back distorted, but not randomly distorted. It's as if it restructured our signal, reorganized it, like it was showing us how to speak properly. He paused, as if choosing his next words carefully. It's not ignoring us, it's teaching. The statement was immediately dismissed by his superiors, but leaked transcripts of internal NASA discussions revealed they took his words far more seriously than they admitted publicly. Behind the scenes, a joint meeting between NASA, ESA and the Royal Observatory was reportedly held under the codename Glass Harbor. The goal? Determine whether 3I Atlas posed a risk, not militarily but informationally, because if it was indeed transmitting structured data, that data could carry unknown effects, not in the physical sense, but in the informational. Patterns, frequencies, harmonics, the kind that can affect human systems simply through resonance. As one anonymous researcher put it, what if understanding it changes us? Meanwhile, private space corporations began performing their own experiments. SpaceX, Blue Origin, even smaller startups with access to orbital telemetry. One independent satellite managed to capture a reflected signal off the object's projected path. It wasn't strong enough to decode, but it was unmistakably non-random. A pulse train, 12 intervals, repeating every 19 seconds. 12, 19, both prime numbers, both recurring throughout astronomical constants, and, according to ancient mythologists who quickly entered the conversation, both tied to numerological patterns found in Mayan cosmology and Sumerian calendars. It was chaos, science colliding with mysticism, data entangled with belief. And yet, through it all, one question remained. What is 3I Atlas trying to tell us? That's when a fourth expert entered the discussion, one who didn't belong in the world of physics at all. Dr. Mireia Candel, a linguist specializing in symbolic communication, was brought into the Atlas initiative after a discovery that baffled even the most hardened scientists. When the electromagnetic signal was converted into a three-dimensional waveform, essentially turning it into a topographical model, the structure resembled language. Not human letters, not even runes or glyphs, but syntax, ordered repetition, nested symmetries, and intentional voids that mirrored grammatical hierarchy. It's communicating through structure, Candel explained, meaning encoded in geometry. Imagine if the universe itself were the alphabet, and Atlas is writing with it. Her theory sounded poetic, until a team of data scientists confirmed her results using independent algorithms. The waveform had predictive symmetry, meaning the next line of the signal could be anticipated with 98% accuracy. That's only possible if the pattern is being written by a logic, not chaos. Still, skeptics argued it could be a self-organizing natural system, like a crystalline lattice forming in space. But even that analogy failed when a new reading came in, this time showing the waveform responding to solar storms. The signal altered itself in rhythm with the sun's fluctuations, almost like it was shielding itself from interference. By then, the experts were divided into three camps. The scientists, insisting on physical explanations, quantum plasma behavior, gravitational anomalies, and data distortion. The signal theorists, who believed Atlas was artificial and intelligent, observing or even interacting with us. And the silent ones, officials who neither confirmed nor denied anything, but quietly adjusted military satellite orbits to avoid direct alignment. In one leaked transcript from a classified meeting in Geneva, an unnamed military representative reportedly asked, "If it's intelligent, does it know we're watching?" Dr. Sørensen replied simply, "It's not watching, it's waiting." The words hung in the air, both metaphor and warning, because within days of that meeting a new anomaly appeared. The electromagnetic signal from 3i Atlas suddenly doubled in amplitude. Every receiver on Earth, from NASA arrays to amateur radio telescopes, recorded the same surge. It was as if the object had noticed the attention and responded. And this time, the signal wasn't alone. Over 40 observatories recorded microbursts, faint, synchronized flashes from points scattered across the night sky, forming a perfect sphere around the solar system. Each flash mirrored the same harmonic pattern. "It's like a network waking up," Dr. Wang whispered in a leaked interview. "A constellation of machines, or beacons, and Atlas might be the key." Suddenly everything changed. The scientists who had spent years laughing at the word contact began to realize the implications. If these signals were connected, if this network existed, then humanity wasn't observing an object passing by. We were inside its field. The idea sent shockwaves through every discipline. Philosophers called it the observation paradox, the moment when humanity realizes it is not looking outward, but being looked upon. Still, some refused to believe. A few clung to hope that it was all a mistake, a data illusion that time would explain away. But then came the kicker, the moment that turned speculation into fear. On November 7th, 2025, at precisely 03:11 UTC, all telemetry from the Deep Space Network registered a single pulse, short, dense, and unlike anything ever recorded before. When decoded into waveform audio, it lasted only 8 seconds. 8 seconds of low, resonant vibration, followed by silence. But when the frequency graph was rotated and compressed, it formed a pattern unmistakable to anyone who had ever studied Earth's electromagnetic fingerprint. It was our own signal, reflected back to us, altered, inverted, rewritten, as if to say, "We hear you." When the data first broke into the open, the world reacted the only way it could, with awe, disbelief, and a quiet fear that something fundamental had just changed. 3i Atlas wasn't simply an object anymore. It had become a mirror, reflecting every unanswered question humanity ever asked about the universe. Scientists began to speak in careful, almost poetic terms. They weren't talking about orbits or trajectories now. They were talking about meaning. If the signal was real, if those binary pulses carried intelligence, then the timeline of human existence had just been rewritten. We were no longer alone in the dark ocean of space. We were standing on the shore, staring at the faint lights of another civilization glimmering far beyond the horizon. Astrophysicists started running thought experiments. What if 3i Atlas wasn't just communicating, but testing? What if its slow approach through the solar system, its strange rhythm, its hidden isotopes, were all part of a calibration, a way to see how Earth would respond? Governments, as always, fell silent. The same agencies that once laughed off UFOs now refused to comment. Encrypted transmissions were detected between the Deep Space Network and classified ground facilities. Something was happening behind closed doors, and then leaked documents surfaced on an obscure data-sharing board. They referenced Protocol Celestial 9, an alleged contingency plan drafted in 2021 for first contact scenarios involving non-biological entities of interstellar origin. No one could confirm if the leak was genuine, but the wording was chilling. Maintain observational distance. Do not attempt direct transmission until structure and intent are confirmed. Object may exhibit autonomous response behavior. Autonomous response behavior. That phrase alone sent ripples through the scientific world, because deep down, everyone knew what it implied, that 3i Atlas might react to us. And so, a debate ignited. Should humanity respond? Some said yes. If it truly carried intelligence, this could be our greatest moment, the dawn of cosmic communication. Others warned that answering could expose us, that the act of speaking first could mark us as naive, a civilization too eager to announce itself in a universe that might not be friendly. The implications stretched far beyond astronomy. Philosophers spoke of consciousness not as a biological process, but as a universal pattern, a signal that could travel through matter and time itself. Theologians revisited ancient texts, searching for verses that might describe messengers of the heavens, not as myth, but as encoded memory of previous encounters. Meanwhile, quantum theorists suggested a darker possibility, that 3i Atlas wasn't a messenger at all, but a mirror node within a network stretching across galaxies, quietly mapping civilizations and sending the data somewhere we couldn't even imagine. The idea was terrifying. What if we weren't being contacted? What if we were being catalogued? Still, the public fascination only grew. Artists painted cosmic eyes staring through space. Musicians sampled the 23-minute pulse into haunting symphonies. Children looked up at the sky at night, whispering questions their parents couldn't answer. Every telescope, every radar dish, every deep space antenna turned its gaze toward that single moving enigma. And as it continued its silent journey, the pulse pattern changed, just slightly. The intervals grew shorter, the rhythm accelerated. Some believed it was responding to our observation, adapting, acknowledging. Others believed it was preparing for something. Are we witnessing a major shift in space science? One journalist asked. Or the beginning of humanity's next great story? Because whether you believed the data or doubted it, one truth became undeniable. The moment 3i Atlas entered our skies, the universe stopped feeling empty. It felt alive. Weeks passed, then months, and yet the silence from 3i Atlas grew louder, a silence that seemed almost intentional, almost sentient. Its pulse, once steady and predictable, began to shift again. Subtle changes in frequency, amplitude, and timing. To the untrained eye, it looked random, but to those still tracking it day and night, it told a different story. It wasn't fading, it was evolving. The binary sequence once thought to be meaningless noise now carried deeper mathematical symmetries, prime numbers, Fibonacci ratios, harmonic intervals that mirrored patterns found in the DNA helix itself. The deeper scientists looked, the more they realized 3i Atlas wasn't just passing through. It was learning, observing, perhaps even communicating in ways we weren't ready to understand. Then, on a quiet morning at the Arecibo Data Relay, a new signal appeared, not from 3i Atlas directly, but from the same region of space it had traversed months earlier. It was brief, barely a whisper. But when decoded, it translated to one haunting line. We've been waiting. No one could explain how or why. Some said it was a coincidence, a natural pulse amplified by solar interference. Others believed it was confirmation of what humanity had feared and hoped for all at once. For the first time, the term first contact wasn't science fiction. It was an entry in a live data feed. And yet, with all our telescopes, our equations, our technologies, one truth remained unshakable. We still had no idea who or what was waiting for us out there. Because in the end, maybe the message wasn't meant to start a conversation. Maybe it was meant to remind us of something much older, that the universe has always been aware of itself, and that awareness has now noticed us. Scientists are now asking questions that blur the line between physics and philosophy. Are we being studied or invited? Was 3i Atlas sent or born? And if we respond, what will answer back? The truth is, no one knows, but one thing is certain. The night sky will never look the same again. This isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of something we can barely comprehend. If you've made it this far, ask yourself, what if this is real? What if, for the first time in history, we're no longer the watchers, but the ones being watched? Tell me what you think in the comments. What is 3i Atlas? A messenger? A machine? Or a warning? And if you want to know what comes next, subscribe. Because next week we'll dive into the latest wave of data and what it might reveal about what's really waiting beyond the edge of our solar system. Stay curious, stay awake, because this story is far from over.